room as well. I'm Robin Landau. I'm the Director of Programs and Development at Voices of Hope, and I want to welcome you all here tonight. I'm thrilled to finally be here after 3 years. We were ready to go in 2020 and had a really nice group, and obviously we all know what happened next. And so we've been waiting for this trip for a long time. It's something that we've really wanted to do. And I'm really excited to have Moniece Newman from the March of the Living here tonight to tell you more about the trip. And I am thrilled to have Dr. Sam Kassow here as well, who will be our educator on the trip. It's just an incredible opportunity to travel with Dr. Kassow. And one of the things that we've just started the conversations, but one of the things that I think is going to be really beautiful about this trip is that we will be able to also not only focus on what happened during the Shoah, but also on what Jewish life, the very rich Jewish life that existed in Poland before the Shoah, and it will be wonderful to have Sam guide us and educate us about that as well. And I think we're at a really interesting point for those of you who were at the conference yesterday and heard Shiri Sandler's closing remarks. She asked us all, she kind of posed the question, well, what's next? What are we going to do next? And she mentioned the importance of memory, and she mentioned the importance of going to these places where these horrors happened, and remembering the names and remembering the personalities and the lives that were there. And so we're really excited to share that with you. And I'm now going to turn it over to Moniece. Oh, one last thing. I'm sorry, when I introduced Professor Kassow, the other thing that's fabulous is that two of the great interesting places that we're going to be traveling to on our trip is the Poland Museum, which Professor Kassow was in the team that planned that museum, and also the Onyx Shabbos archives. And he was from the Jewish Historical Institute that founded those and that worked on those. So we're really hearing from a world expert on that, which is very exciting. All right, Moniece, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Thank you very much. And I have to, at the outset, thank everybody for being here. And I have to thank Robin and Kathy for sticking with us. We started 3 years. I feel like it's and also recognizing some of the names of the people on the screen who were with us in 2020, and then a thing called COVID came. I recognized Margie, and then our lives were disrupted. But the tenacity of the group is awe-inspiring. So it's a privilege to be able to share this with you. And I actually wanted to start not only by thanking Robin and Kathy and all of you, but I wanted to start with a picture in the background. When I found out from Robin that Professor Kassow was going to be guiding your group, which is a real coup, and a reason that I probably would even sign up to come. I wanted to share this picture in the background because a number of years ago I went to the Onyx Shabbat Diaries, the exhibit, which contains what they found in the milk cans, Emanuel Ringelblum, and I took this picture because it was a picture, and as soon as Professor Kassow saw it, he knew who had actually drawn it. I have it in front of me, but there was a note with it, and it says, "I do not ask for praise, only for me and my daughter to be remembered. This talented little girl's name is Margaret Lichtenstein. It was drawn by her mother, Gila Lichtenstein, before they were murdered as an homage, so that we would remember what transpired. Because I think when you study the Holocaust, you have to understand it as one person at a time. You cannot understand it as 6 million. So this picture actually sits on my desk all the time as the inspiration to continue to march forward. I'm sure many people would say, why in anybody's right mind would they begin to be embarking on their 18th journey to Auschwitz? This will be my 18th time going to Auschwitz. And I think that I'm doing it for Margalit and I'm doing it for Gila. And I thank you in advance for considering this. You know, in terms of the March of the Living, a little bit of background to set the stage. The March of the Living was actually started in 1988 by two people from Israel. In it was pre-1990, it was 1998, and it was communist Poland. People came with their little bags of, you know, bamba and some hummus and some olives in a can, because there was no way they could get kosher food. And they had about 1,000 people. And on April 18, 2023, we're expecting 10,000 people to be joining from around the world, including, I just heard 500 students from Brazil, 1,000 students from Austria. And it is a journey of honoring memory and made up of Jews and non-Jews who are coming to tell the world that we didn't forget and we still do have to learn. But, you know, when you hear 10,000, the noted historian who Professor Kassow knows by the name of Michael Birnbaum, when he first came on the March of the Living, he said something very poignant that has struck with me. He said, Monish, you're looking at 10,000 people here. I want you to take a look because I want you to understand that was the amount of people that were murdered in one day in Auschwitz, which was a very sobering kind of a thing. And in order for us to understand that, we need to travel to learn not simply how Jews died, but how they lived, and also what's happening today, the rebirth of the Jewish community. As Professor Kassow knows, for the first time in 75 years, there is a Jewish preschool in Krakow. There's a JCC in Krakow. So there is a rebirth. And what we want to do with this group is, even though it's 10,000 people, Voices of Hope would be traveling on their own bus, having your own experience. So on that bus, you would have Robin and Kathy and Professor Kassow. You would also have a Polish guide who speaks English, who would be with you to answer questions and to give light into their lives. It is a 4-5-star hotel, and it gives you the opportunity not only to learn about our past, but also to learn about what's happening today. And in order to kind of capture the essence of March of the Living, because I can, you know, talk quite a bit, but I'm going to ask Robin if she could just take a minute and to show you a 4-minute clip that visually can show you what March of the Living is about. It's actually to show the universality of this program. It was made by the delegation from Australia, which sends a number of people on the trip. And I just want you to get a glimpse of what you're looking at as you consider embarking on this journey. So Robin, I'm going to turn it to you.
Robin, there's no sound.
There's no sound, Robin.
Is it not working?
There's no sound.
Pardon?
Can people hear? Because somebody just said, I can't hear. People saying there's no sound. I don't know.
I can't hear you. Hold on. You can't hear?
No, I can't hear. I don't know if people are saying there is no sound. I don't know if you can stop.
There's no sound on the video at all.
There's no sound. Robin, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Could you not hear that at all? Any of it?
No.
All right. Give me 1 second. I don't know why that is. Where do I do that? Sorry, my husband is gonna share screen.
Can't see.
Technology.
Oh, I got it. And I apologize. And this has not happened to me before. So I apologize. I'm going to start right from the beginning and tell me if you can hear it. Just please nod.
Imagine every single person that you know in your life, dead, killed in one day.
It wasn't just a tragedy in the lives of Jews. This was a tragedy in the whole of mankind. The world needs to know what atrocities were done in order to prevent them happening again. And that's why it's important for youngsters to go, so they can carry that knowledge.
Journey, transformation,
history,
community,
connection, emotional, powerful,
identity.
The March of the Living is a march for humanity. It's a march for a better world. It's not just a march to commemorate the Holocaust.
The transformative nature of the program is astounding. The program is very individually focused, so we try and reduce the Holocaust from figures to individual stories.
Anybody can go on a trip to Poland, get a private guide, but March of Living takes you there with Jews and non-Jews from all over the world for Yom HaShoah. Then we go to Israel for Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut.
I went to Poland with the expectation that it was going to be so heart-wrenchingly scary and impossible to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But going from seeing the devastation of the Holocaust to seeing how, as a Jewish community, we came out of it and have built such a strong sense of identity and community is one of the most heartwarming experiences.
For me, it'd be very hard to go on March of the Living without going to Israel after, because it's the story of the Jewish people, from powerlessness to power, from darkness to light, from death to life.
Before going on March of the Living, I was quite arrogant and spoiled. I think March of the Living sort of tore that out of me. That raw emotion that I felt there is something that will definitely stay with me forever.
You will never be able to experience that feeling of marching from Auschwitz to Birkenau with 15,000 people.
The feeling of unity, thousands and thousands of people, young and old, gathering together at Auschwitz to say, we are still here.
To walk alongside people from Israel, from Argentina, from South Africa, from Poland, and actually feel a part of a Jewish community and a Jewish global community. It's an amazing opportunity for anybody to be part of a global experience.
March of the Living has always been a really big emphasis on having survivors with us, sharing their personal journeys, making the Holocaust not just something you learn about in a textbook, but something that is real, that happened, and that you form a personal connection with.
To hear those stories firsthand, to walk the streets to point out homes and houses. There's nothing more powerful than that.
Hearing the stories of the righteous Gentiles and how they saved someone's life and risked their own, it's true inspiration, and it's not something you can get from anywhere else, I don't think. It's the March of the Living experience.
It is definitely one of the most formative and important experiences that I've ever had and probably will ever have.
Thanks, Robin. So that just gives you a visual picture of this program. And as I said, Voices of Hope would be having their own program. It always surrounds Yom HaShoah, which is determined by the Hebrew calendar, and it always falls after Passover. So this year, Passover ends on Thursday, April 13th. And we're going to be beginning the program in Krakow on Monday, April 17th. We will, and Robin will share with you, we'll put on the screen now a tentative itinerary, which Professor Castow will help us to hone up given his experiences. We will provide accommodations for you on Sunday, April 16th in Krakow. And what's really important to understand is that if you have family members, if you have stories, and you want to go to Krakow beforehand or other places in Poland, please do let me know. And we can help get you guides. Some people have hometowns. I believe, Marge, you were going to Hungary. I'm not sure if right. So Marge and I worked to find for her to get to go and see her family's, places before the actual march began. And we can do that. You have a choice, unlike teens, you have a choice about if you want to do Poland only or Poland and Israel. And Professor Castow will be guiding you through this whole experience. Krakow is an unbelievably beautiful city because it was not bombed by the Nazis. That was their headquarters. So if you wanted to go earlier, I can let you know what hotel we're staying at, and you can also stay there. We will be beginning on Sunday evening. We'll provide you accommodations for Sunday night. As I said, it's a 4 or 5-star hotel. We're going to be starting in Krakow with a concentration on Kazimierz, which is the Jewish historical quarter. And King Kazimierz invited the Jews back, and they set up almost like a small town, and they named it in homage of King Kazimierz. We will be spending our time in Krakow, in the Jewish quarter, visiting the synagogues. We're also going to be meeting with representatives from the JCC in Krakow. Jonathan Ornstein moved to Krakow, and he began to put up all these billboards across the town of Challah and Shabbat candles. And he said, with notations, if you don't understand why you have these in your family and like to discover more, please come to the JCC and find out. And more people are coming, discovering their Jewish roots. We're going to hope to go and meet with a righteous Gentile, to see the Chair Memorial, Schindler's Factory Museum, and also Kashav, which is the labor camp where Oskar Schindler took Jews when he was able to save them. We will spend some time in Old Town Krakow, and that evening is an international March of the Living Erev Yom HaShoah ceremony, and for all the adult delegations who will be joining us. The next morning, on Tuesday, April 18th, we're actually going to be traveling to a place called Miedzna. It's a small town not far from Auschwitz. And during the war, as the death marches were happening, there was a Polish priest who found bodies of people who had been murdered. Who had just dropped dead, actually. And the only thing that he had, as by way of identification, were their numbers, not their names. So he buried them and created a cemetery where they don't have any names, but the numbers. And Yad Vashem and other communities are working very hard to restore, to give people back their names and putting their names next to these numbers. We will visit the Auschwitz Jewish Center. It had a thriving Jewish community pre-war in Oswiecim. We will then participate in the International March of the Living with 10,000 people from around the world. There'll be a concluding ceremony in Birkenau, and that evening you'll have free time to discover the beauty of Old Town Krakow. The next day, we will travel to Auschwitz and Birkenau to spend the day there, learning about, what transpired in those places of horror. And at the end of this, we're going to actually drive up to Lublin and spend the evening in Lublin. It's about a 4-hour drive, because the next day where we want to take you is to Majdanek extermination camp, which is a camp, as Professor Kassar could tell you, that when the Russians came, the Germans didn't have the ability to destroy it. So for many people, it looks real with the fences and the gas chambers and the crematoriums. We're also going to spend time in Old Town Lublin, because the Jewish community had a long history there, and go to the Grodzki Gate Museum and Theatre, where Polish individuals have actually set up a museum at the entrance of where the Jews used to live, to pay homage to their story. And we're going afterwards on our way to Warsaw to a small town called Kazimierz Dolny to see what shtetl life was like. And during the war, the Nazis took the stones from cemeteries and they made them into streets. And they have been able, since the war, to find them, and they built these stones to make sure that we don't forget, into a lapidarium, into a wall, so that there is some way of reconnecting with the past. We will be in Warsaw, and the next day we're actually traveling to a place called Tikuchin. It's about 2.5 hours north, to uncover the life of the Jews as they lived in the shtetl. And not far from the synagogue is a mass grave in the forest of Lubkova, where the Jews of Tikuchin were marched from the synagogue and shot into an open pit. We will then spend time in Treblinka. We'll have Shabbat in Warsaw. And then, given Professor Kassar's incredible experiences and knowledge, we're going to spend time in the Poland Museum, which traces the 900 years history of Polish Jewry. And Professor Kassar just told Robin and I that he was responsible for, forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, I don't know if it was the interwar or the pre-war section of this museum. And to be able to be there with him is a pure gift. We'll also do a walking tour of Warsaw and trace where the ghetto wall is, and the Jewish museum, and the Mila 18, and the Umschlagplatz, which is the deportation center where people left or forced to go to their death in Treblinka. We will spend our time on Sunday at the Warsaw Cemetery, and then go with Professor Kassar to the Onak Shabbat archive to see the milk can exhibit. And at that point, people could decide if they want to return to the United States or go to Israel. It is Israel's 75th birthday. The GA will be held in Jerusalem at this point. We have secured hotels, which is a big, a big clue, because there's so many people. It's going to be a real experience. We're going to be in Israel for 2 very important days. One is Yom HaZikaron, and the day where we memorialize the victims of terror and soldiers who have been murdered in different wars and conflicts. We're going, with Robin's input, we want to spend time in a place called Beit Ambuza. It's an Ethiopian absorption center in Hadera. We'll be in Rishon LeZion. And then we're going to meet with Holocaust survivors in Ner Yaakov. And that evening, we will go to Latrun for a community commemoration and to be there when the siren goes at 8 p.m. throughout the country for a moment of silence. We're going to then go to, given that it is Yom HaZikaron, we're going to a new incredible museum that has just opened called Shar Hagan Museum on the Burma Road, which talks about the 1948 battle. And then as a thank you, and the food really in Poland is fine, but we're actually going to do a tasting tour in Machane Yehuda, which is a really wonderful experience. And we will be in Erev Yom HaAtzmaut. It looks like we're going to be in Jerusalem, and then just to be in the city as people celebrate Israel's 75th birthday. On Wednesday, April 26th, we're going to learn a little bit about the separation war. We're going to walk from Yad Vashem to Har Herzl to visit Har Herzl, which is the national cemetery of the state of Israel. And on that day, after all of this, about 1 o'clock, everybody who is in Israel has another march. It's a different kind of a march, but where we march from the city square to the Kotel. It's, you know, I always say to myself, you know, this is, I'm not sure I can keep doing this after 18 years. And then I stand in Safra Square with these thousands of adults and kids just celebrating in joy. And I said, okay, I'll do it for 1 more year. And it was obviously compelling because I keep doing it, you know. So I hope you'll be able to join me in feeling this feeling of complete joy after all that we've seen. And that night, there is a worldwide March of the Living dinner and mega event in Latrun, where everybody goes, all the delegations come, and the program is officially over at that point. And people, again, you know, we did this in 2020. Some people wanted us to continue to get you reservations at the hotel, which I'm happy to do. Or we'll have buses going to the airport or Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, where you can be with family, friends, however it feels, you know, right for you to be. The question that we always get asked now is, and that in summation is what the program is looking for. You can see it'll begin on the night of April 16th and ends on April 26th. What we're going to do is we're going to provide you with everything in Poland and in Israel and the flight from Warsaw to Tel Aviv. But we're going to ask everybody has miles and we want to go to Europe beforehand, for you to get to Poland on your own volition. I do have a travel agent who I've worked with who's done this, who I believe some people have worked with in the past, who can help you. But the quickest way and the most, well, the cheapest way and the best way people have done is to actually get a round trip ticket from the United States to some point in Europe, get to Krakow. We provide the flights from Poland to Tel Aviv, and then you can just take a one-way ticket. It's the most economic back to your port of entry into Europe, and then you fly back. And before we go, we will have educational sessions, and there will be opportunity to meet with other delegations. And, you know, I think for me, why I am so grateful to you for considering this journey, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Simon Wiesenthal was actually an architect. And when he survived the war, he decided to become a Nazi hunter. And people asked him why he did that. And he said, because one day when I get to the other side, I want to be able to tell the souls who were murdered that I did not forget them. And this is a journey about understanding the Holocaust and one person at a time. As you can tell, I was not born in America. I've been told numerous times that I need to learn how to speak English. So with an attempt to learn how to speak English, even after 47 years in America, having been born in South Africa, I cannot lose the accent. So when I came when I was 13, I tried very, very hard. But it is about understanding peoplehood. You know, the Jews, that I can be born in Johannesburg and I know how to say the Shema and Hatikva, and you can be born in, you know, back east in Connecticut or wherever, different localities, and we have something in common. So it's a journey where you are in the best of hands. We will take care of all, you know, we build into the schedule a number of free evenings so that you could discover Krakow and Warsaw, because there are cities that are worth exploring, and allowing you to meet with the people of Poland as well. It's a very powerful, powerful journey. And the other question that people have concerns about is security. So I do want you to know that the March of the Living has 24/7 security. We have somebody who works with the Polish government, with Israel Security, and on every single bus, there is a security guard, both in Poland and in Israel. Not because Poland is particularly unsafe, but because we are 10,000 people coming into another country, and we need to just make sure that everything is you know, safe and secure. So that in a nutshell is what this program is about. Is it powerful? Yes. Is it hard to take in? I could tell you, as I mentioned, I've been 17 times, and I have way more questions than I have answers, way more. But it has certainly fashioned my life, and I really hope that this is something that will be appealing to you, given your family history or just interest in this journey. And I wasn't at the pleasure of being at the conference, but based on what Robin said about your last speaker, you know, what actions do we take? And by going there and learning the horrors of history so that we can do our own part to ensure it doesn't happen again, or we speak up, given rising anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial, it's a very powerful thing that I really do want to ask you to consider. And I'm most happy to answer. Robin will send you some FAQs. You don't need a visa to get into Poland. In terms of COVID, we will follow the protocols of the Polish and the Israeli government. At this point, there are no COVID restrictions. We also have 24/7 medical care on the International March of the Living. And we do ask everybody to get travel insurance. That is something that is absolutely vital. Given what happened with COVID and then the war in Ukraine, we do ask everybody to please have travel insurance. In terms of the cost, you know, I hate to sound like I don't know, but we're still waiting for the Polish land providers to give us the final cost. I'm hoping to have them next week. I've been telling Robin this for a while, and I'm putting so much pressure on everybody. But I imagine everybody will do their own their own flight arrangements. We will take everything. You will have no outside of your own dinners and stuff if you don't want to eat with the march. I think the round estimate for the entire experience, it's probably going to be about $6,500 to $6,500. And as soon as we know, we'll let you know. And Poland, obviously, if you only do the Poland portion of that, it'll be commensurate with that experience. And again, as soon as we have pricing, which they have promised me by next week, we will send it out to you immediately. And you can get your land arrangements. And if people just want to come to Israel with us and not do the portion in Israel, that's also an option. You know, we're willing to work with anybody. And if you just want to potentially just come on the day of the march, that's something else. I do text, I do answer emails. So if you have any questions at any time, I'm most happy to answer them. So I did it, Robin, if we can open the floor to any questions, or to ask Professor Kassow if he wants to add anything about the places that I have mentioned where we are planning to go.
Professor Kassow, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, if anyone has a question about any of these places, I'll be glad to answer. I mean, there's so much to say about each destination that I think it's best if I just answered any specific questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Or are you all just taking it in?
I have a question. This is Kathy
Yes.
Bender. I have a question for Moniz. Hi, Moniz.
How are you?
My husband and I were actually booked in 2023 with your trip out of Los Angeles because we're personal friends of Rabbi Vogel.
Oh, right. Of course.
But I'm curious how each like how the trips differ from one to another, or are they're sort of similar in content and destination and.
You know what, Kathy? Nice to put a name to a face. But they're all very similar, right? It's the places that you're going to go with Temple Aliyah is the same. You know, I can't tell you it's the exact same order that you're going in, but you're covering the same places to capture, you know, the past, the present, and the future. So nothing in that program that I just explained to you is different from what you were going to do with Stuart and Rody. You know, it's a very similar, and just by way of making myself very old, I spent my junior year in 1981 with Rody Vogel, you know, back in. Yes, so now that I'm older, you know, so I can look back fondly and can't believe I've known her for 40 years. So it's very similar. And going with Rabbi, you know, with Rabbi Vogel, I know his meaning to you, but you will get the same kind of camaraderie on this kind of a delegation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Whether you've had people in wheelchairs going with you, because I didn't see any in the film.
Right, but we do, Joan, we do have had people taking in wheelchairs. We absolutely, I've taken teens who have broken their legs and wanted to come, and people who are a little bit more senior who need help. So you absolutely, we do have a wheelchair. We could rent it for you in Poland and have it by the bus. The security guards are unbelievable. We can also get, accessible rooms in Poland. You know, there are some limitations. I will not lie to you. When you go to Auschwitz, for example, you do have to climb up some stairs in order to see all the stuff. On the day of the march, for example, if people cannot walk, we have a bus that can take people. But Joan, that is not a reason not to come. We absolutely have taken people in wheelchairs throughout this journey.
And one more question that my parents, the shtetl they came from, Zhuravna, is now in the Ukraine.
We're not going.
Not good.
No, we're not. And you know, unfortunately, we had to cancel this. I guess it was last year because of the war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, the war in Ukraine has become like a fabric. And I have people there in Poland right now who are traveling, and life unfortunately continues. So please understand, we will not go anywhere that is unsafe. We're not going to the Ukrainian border. We're not taking you near to Belzhytsk, which is the closest point to the Ukrainian border. So we're very, very aware. And please understand that all the itineraries are sent to security who monitor the buses at all times. So, and subject to change as needed, both in Israel and Poland. But we will not be going near Ukraine.
Bob?
Yeah, first of all, Moniz, it's a real pleasure to meet you. My wife is South African, so we'll have something to talk about. And
so we can talk about biltong and good chocolate, right, Bob?
Was just there in July and August, so we've had a great time. I just wanted to hear again, the cost is $6,500 without air?
Right. And it's an estimate, Bob. I will give.
I understand that.
Yeah, but that's around about inclusion of everything except for some dinners. It includes the tips, you sometimes, as well. So,
Okay. Just making sure. It was a little hard to hear.
yeah, okay, I apologize.
We can talk about the big five when we get there.
Okay, and the small five, okay.
Can I have a question? For
Sure.
Sam, will you be in
Yeah.
charge of doing the historical background in each place that we go to? Is that your
Yeah.
job there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I've led a number of Evo trips to Poland and Ukraine, actually. I just did a Evo trip last July to Warsaw and Krakow and Lublin. And so, yeah, I'd be very happy to.
And we will make sure that everybody has earpieces and microphones so that you can hear. We'll take care of that so that you can take in everything that Sam is going to be sharing with you. I don't know. The only thing that I potentially is I don't know if Sam can guide in Auschwitz, because obviously the Auschwitz Museum, the Auschwitz Museum requires that the guides in Auschwitz guide. And I must tell you, they are absolutely a sampling test. They're phenomenal people who are dedicating their life. You can guide in Birkenau, but not in Auschwitz, the museum. But otherwise, he will be a font of knowledge. I believe Lindsay has a question.
I do. Hi. I'm considering bringing my family with me on this trip, and it would be my first time as well. I have a 15-year-old and one, I guess she'll be almost 16, and one that'll be 11 at the time of the trip. They're relatively well versed. I don't think they remember a time not knowing about the Holocaust. I'm just wondering if it's appropriate to bring them on this trip. I've seen many that say it's a young adult trip, an adult trip, a teen trip, but I haven't seen anything that says like family trip.
Right. And I think, Lindsay, I don't know your children, and I don't know how we go to some pretty difficult places to go. So you would have to, and it also, the days are very, very long, and there is exposure to alcohol, so I think whatever you are comfortable doing, I think you and Robin should talk about it. We have not taken kids as young as 11. We used the program technically is open to 10 through 12th graders, and I'm sure your kids are different, but I have found that even 10th graders have a very hard time taking in this journey, and with more success for an 11th and 12th grader. It's hard subject matter to take in, and so it's just the sensibilities of, will they be freaked out, for lack of a better term? And I think you and Robin should perhaps talk more about the comfort level of what is going on. And happy to help in any way possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Moniz or Professor Cassow or for me?
We've either stumped you or we've bombarded you with information. I'm not sure. So,
Kathy. You're muted.
Got it. Yeah, just one more question. Is there a maximum number of people you will allow on the trip?
Well, we need to get to 35 because the costs that are associated.
There's a minimum of 35.
We need a minimum of 35 to make this feasible. So we're not charging you, but they're built-in costs.
Right.
If we get to 40, that's wonderful. We're not going to turn people away. But we would like to get to 35 so that we can cover, all the costs necessary. So and keep the price down. And please understand, you go to I don't know if you have Trader Joe's in Connecticut, but you go to Trader Joe's here, and what used to cost like $100 is now $150. So, a friend of mine in Poland was telling me that sugar used to be 3 zlotys and now it's 7. So we're dealing with inflation and we're dealing with flight costs. So there is going to be an expense, an added expense, but we're trying to keep the costs as minimal as possible to ensure a very powerful experience.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no more questions tonight, first of all, I want to thank you all for being here, and Moniz, thank you so much, and Professor Cassow, thank you so much. We're looking forward to working with you and moving forward with this. If anybody has any questions that come up after they leave, please feel free to give me a call or to email me, and I'll send you out a frequently asked question sheet and a tentative itinerary. And just a reminder that the itinerary is tentative and the pricing is tentative. And as soon as we have final information on that, I will send that to you as well. Just a couple quick things happening at Voices of Hope coming up. We are really excited. I think you guys will be interested in this. On September 30th, we have a lunch and learn with about a book called I'd Like to Say Sorry, but There's No One to Say Sorry To. It's by a Polish author, and he is going to be speaking with his translator, and it is about Jewish life in Poland today. It's short stories, very powerful. So if anybody's interested in coming to that, please let me know, or you can go on our website and take a look. It's Voices of Hope, ctvoicesofhope.org. And also coming up in October, we do an Evening of Hope annually, which is our annual fundraiser. And this year we're really very excited because we are, you'll all get invitations soon in the mail, but we're doing a one-man play called Wiesenthal, which had just wonderful reviews, and the author, the playwright, and the actor will be here performing that.
Very good, Robin. I can attest.
Oh, you can attest? Good. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And we will be honoring Eliane Sandler with the L'Adore Vador honor as well. So please let me know if anybody has any questions, and we're just really excited to move forward. Oh, Marge has a question.
I wanted to ask you, so what are our next steps, and will we be meeting again, or how will this proceed as far as?
So the next steps are that I will send out the sample itinerary and the frequently asked questions, and in the next week to two, we're hopeful that we'll finalize the price. And as soon as the price is finalized, we will get the application to all of you, and we'll take it from there.
And my email and my telephone number is there. And as Marge can attest, we did work together, and happy to be of any help that I can be. And before we go, we will have some pre-trip orientations. Right. And I will send you, and Professor Cassow is a major font of knowledge, lists of books, and movies and videos that you can watch. And Professor Cassow will be teaching us before we go as well to prepare for this journey.
Right. Yeah. We had all of that in place last time. There were lists of books and classes and everything coming up.
So we're helping for normality in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
So or whoever's listening, that we actually after 3 years get to go.
Yes.
So yes. Lucky.
Yeah. And as Moniz, I'm just going to repeat, because Moniz really was wonderful at working with everyone individually based upon, I know Marge was planning on going to see places where her family was from, and it was just a pleasure to work with Moniz. So we're lucky to have her. And I am excited after going to one of Professor Cassow's classes that Kimberly Bolero, who was our former director of the Hero Center at Voices of Hope, she was lucky enough to go on a trip with Professor Cassow and never stopped talking about it. So I am very excited to finally also have that opportunity. And again, just thank you for coming. And if you have any questions, just please give me a call and